हजुर तपाईँ इन्ट्रोड्युस गर्नुहुन्छ
Okay. One resource person, is here. What do you think? Is it Nepalese or foreigner? Really? Foreigner. Yeah. Some people are telling foreigner, some people are telling Nepalese. Actually, he is Nepalese. And he is, Mustangi people. Formerly, his parents, were in Tangpe village. Yeah. Now they are living in Kathmandu. His name is, Dorche Gurung Tangpe. I know him very well. Yeah, and listen to me. He is an intellectual person, education-loving person. He studies in USA in chemistry subject, one of the branch of science. And fortunately, I met him yesterday in a program, and I requested him, to present speech or, I think one kind of presentation about the mainly importance of education. As well as, his experience, he visited so many countries. He was a teacher, in different countries before. And just now he told me 9 countries he visited and taught the students. 9 countries. In USA, Russia, I think some of. And he will tell you more and more information about the education of worldwide of different countries. Therefore, it is a golden chance to have some information about the education and about his experience, his life, etc. Therefore, listen to him very carefully. If you have any questions, ask him, and you will have, a little more knowledge, information. Okay? What is his name? Okay. Yes, Gurung, start here,
Okay. Thank you, Chandra sir. What's your name?
My name is Sushmita Parin, sir.
Where is your village?
My village is in airport.
Right here.
Yeah,
Okay. What grade are you in?
10.
10. So did you finish your SLC?
No,
SE?
I haven't. I'm going to finish next year.
Oh, okay. So you've started 10th grade. Okay. Listen up, the rest of you. What do you want to do after you finish 10th grade?
I will start my college campus.
Okay. What do you want to do? All right, listen up. I'm not getting paid to be here. If you don't want to listen, either you go outside or I will go outside. Okay? Again, I'm not getting paid to be here. I'm here because I want to be here. I'm from the village of Tangbe, as Chandra sir mentioned. And there's a whole story behind how I ended up, where I ended up in the US. And then everywhere else in the world, all over the world. And then I'm back here after all those years. There's a story behind that. And that story is what I am here to share with you. But if you're not interested, you don't have to be here. Or I will leave. Okay? One or the other is going to happen. All right? So when someone is speaking, whether it's me or someone from your class, I want you to listen. All right? There's lots to be learned just listening to others speak. Right? Okay. Has everyone understood that? Is everyone clear on that? Yes? Okay, good. I used to be a teacher, so I know about students. Okay. All right, so you're going to go on to college, but what do you want to do in life when you grow up?
Actually, I have a plan like not in the education sector. I have like plan like over work in my own village to have open like a little, like our country is business, tourism sector developing country. So I would work over there and first let me finish my education till how I finish.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm planning for that.
What does your parents want you to do?
My parents, they just want to have like they want to see me as educated and to be a good citizen. That's all.
Okay. So they would expect you to continue your studies.
Yeah.
Okay, good, good. And you there, what's your name? Mm-hmm. Asis Thakali. Where's your home? Where's your village? Same? Right here? Siang. Where is Siang? Tell me where Siang is. I don't know where Siang is.
Near airport.
Near the airport? Oh, yes. So, in the area. What do you want to do when you grow up? What do you want to be?
Be a successful person.
Successful person. Tell me something more specific. Do you want to be a doctor, maybe, or an engineer, or a shopkeeper, or a guide?
I will go foreign for study, higher study.
Sure, but after you finish your studies.
Business.
Business, okay. Why? Why business? What about your parents? What do they want you to do? What do they expect you to do? Does your parents have expectations of you? Yeah, okay. What do they expect you to do? What is their dream? What is their hopes for you?
There is for me to be a good person
Mm-hmm.
in life.
Okay, that's good. So they don't have any specific expectations. Like, they don't want you to be a doctor.
My choice of
Okay, good, okay. So they've given you the freedom to be what you want to be, do what you want to do. But do they expect you to go to school? Like finish college, go to university? Okay. Did your parents finish college? No? What did they study? You don't know. Did they finish primary school? What about secondary school?
secondary.
What about college? No. Okay. How many of your parents never went to school? Raise your hand. Your parents never went to school. If your parents. Okay. All right. So I'm raising my hand as well. So hold on. Raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8. Okay. Down. I am also part of your group. My parents didn't go to school. How many of your parents, okay, those of you who didn't go to school, what do your parents want you to finish school, go to college, and then become something? Or do they just want you to maybe finish school? You were one of them, right? What do they expect you to do? Move to? Where? College? They want you to attend college. Why? What do they think you will be able to do attending college? You don't know. That's okay. My parents, all they expected me to do was to be able to read and write. That's why they sent me to school. But I had a different vision. I had a different dream for myself. And that dream took me everywhere. From Pokhara to Kathmandu. Well, the dream started in Kathmandu. And then from Kathmandu abroad to Italy, to the US, and then 9 different countries all over the world. I taught. I traveled. I traveled in 40 different countries. And then I came back in 2013 to Nepal. Because I'd always wanted to come back to work here, to help. In Nepali, when we were kids, as I'm sure you do as well, desko sewa गर्ने. Right? That was one of my dreams. So I came home to do that. And that is the story that I'm going to share with you. To hopefully inspire some of you to also dream of the same kinds of things, right? Because if me, someone like you, someone from the same district as you, if I were able to succeed, if I were able to realize my dreams, then you should be able to as well. Some of you should be able to as well. And one of the things I will talk to you about is a specific thing that you guys, many of you, will be able to apply for. And it's a scholarship. And that scholarship is what got me out of this country and away. Okay, but I'll talk about that as well. All right? Yes? Oh, I thought I heard someone say something. But you don't have to all say yes sir, no sir. Okay? When I ask a question, I'm not expecting a response from all of you, but just from one. And if you have the answer, raise your hand. If you think you have the answer, or if you want to speak, raise your hand, and then I'll call on you and you can speak. Okay? If you have questions about anything that I post, anything that I project, or anything that I say, if you did not understand something I said, raise your hand and ask, and I'll try to help you understand it. I'll explain it, try to explain it better. Okay? Fair enough? Okay. Right. So, like I said, I'm from Tangbe, the little village of Tangbe. How many of you, raise your hand, know where Tangbe is? Raise your hand if you know where Tangbe is. No one knows where Tangbe is? Okay, you know where Tangbe is. You know where Tangbe is. Where is it? Yes, it's between Kathmandu and Susan. I'm from there. I was from there. And I used to live with my grandfather. My parents lived in Pokhara. And of course, even now, at the time, we didn't have a lot of the things that you have here, and even Tangbe has now, like electricity, like tapped water. We didn't have any of that. And the school we had there was nothing. I don't think there was a school, but Chandra sir tells me that there was a school. However, there was probably 1 or 2 rooms with 1 teacher and 5 students and so on. But anyway, my parents decided I should go to school to learn to read and write. But because my parents never went to school, because people from Tangbe, hardly anyone ever went to school, and because hardly anyone from Tangbe or from Mustang succeeded in any way by going to school, completing school, getting a professional degree, I was not really expected to do much with education. My parents, my society, people from my village, and also Nepali society, because as you know, people from this area are called bhote. Because I was a bhote, no one expected me to be able to do anything with my life. But my grandfather took me to Pokhara, and I lived in Pokhara the first year or 2 in this house, all right? And went to a little school about 5-minute walk from here, just down south. It was very small. We had 2 rooms, all right? Anyway, and 1 teacher. Anyway, after that, I ended up at another school, right? Called Bindebashini. Same kind of arrangement. We had 2 buildings, I think, 2 small buildings, as opposed to just 2 little rooms. And I spent another year there. And then I ended up at this school. The reason I got moved from one school to another was because my family moved. And of course, whenever the family moved, they found the nearest school and put me in the nearest school. And this was the nearest school to where we have moved in Pokhara. And at this school, there was a teacher who, recognizing my potential, told my father to take me to Kathmandu and to put me in a very good school, a private school in Kathmandu. Because, and he is supposed to have said, because your son has great potential. If you leave him in a public school, a government school, nothing will happen to his potential. But if he goes to a good school in Kathmandu, something may happen. He may be able to do something with his education. So, my father took me to Kathmandu and he talked to his friends in the city and asked them about good schools in Kathmandu because he knew nothing about schools. He knew nothing about education. Right? You remember he never went to school. Right? Lucky for me, one of his friends pointed him in the direction of St. Xavier's School in Kathmandu. I was taken there and took the admissions test and got admitted to the school. How many of you have heard of St. Xavier's? Have you heard of St. Xavier's? Okay. St. Xavier's School is, there are two now. There's the primary school in Godavari, well, used to be, not anymore, and then the secondary school in Kathmandu. But they're both secondary schools now. Anyway, the reason my father was able to send, but the reason my parents were able to send me to St. Xavier's was because the Jesuits, the priests who ran the school, their society in the US subsidized our education. So the fees were very, very little. Okay? Very, very small fees is what our parents paid. That's why I was able to go there. Okay? And it was here that I encountered a series of people, teachers, who inspired me. Right? The first teacher who inspired me at this school was when I was in 5th grade. His name was Father Downing. He was an American Jesuit priest from Cincinnati, Ohio. What he would do was bring students, graduates of St. Xavier's, who had gone to the US to study and had come back for summer vacation, or had gone to the US, studied, finished their studies, and come back to Nepal. When they would visit the school, Father Downing would bring them to the classroom and have them talk to us, just like the way I'm talking to you. And these students, when they came and talked to us, one after another, over the course of the year, I decided, they inspired me to dream of going to the US as well. That was when I first decided that I would go to the United States for further education. And after my education in the US, I'll come home and desh ko sewa गर्ने. That was my dream. I was in 5th grade. How old is that? How old is that? How old were you when you were in 5th grade? How old? No, 5th grade, 5th. How old are you now? About 16, right? 15, 16, 17. You're in 10th grade. So 5th grade is 11, 12 or so. Okay? All right. So I dreamt of going to the US to get education and then to come back to serve my country by helping those who were born in the kind of context, socioeconomic context that I had been born in, right? To families that were poor, to families whose parents hadn't gone to school, all right? That was my dream. Now, realizing that that's what I wanted to do, and also realizing that I needed to really be really, really good in English, I started working on my English. I didn't have any role models to look up to or so on. I learned all of these things by myself. Okay? So, knowing that I needed to really be good in English, because even then, as a fifth grader, I knew to be able to go to the US on scholarship, and I had to have a scholarship because my parents couldn't afford anything, right? In order to be able to get a scholarship to the United States, I knew that I had to take what's called TOEFL and SAT, and in those days, achievement tests. 3 of those, right? And they were all in English. So I had to be really good in English. And in order to improve my English, in order to become really good in English, I started reading. I'd always enjoyed reading anyway, but once I realized that, I started reading even more. We were lucky. I was lucky. Again, St. Xavier's. In addition to there being teachers like Father Downing telling us, informing us about these opportunities in the US, we also had incredible resources like the library. I would read a book every 3-4 days. Right? I would go through a book almost every 3-4 days. And then when I continued on to secondary school, there were other teachers who inspired me. Again, other North American teachers who inspired me. Teachers like Brother Joe, who I actually met after 30 years in the US a couple of years ago. I actually tracked him down, looked him up on the internet and tracked him down, and I went and met him 30 years later. Right? David Beeston was another teacher. He was a Canadian teacher. I also tracked him down. He's back in Canada, and I emailed him, and we had email exchanges. Again, after 28 years. Another teacher was Rick Horace. He was another American teacher. Again, I tracked him down, but I had met him when I was in the US. So I talked to him on the phone, we exchanged emails. So that was after 22 years or so. Okay? And then there was Brother Paul Galantovich. I wasn't able to track him down, but he was a very, very inspirational teacher. He was my chemistry teacher. All of these teachers, they inspired me to think of things that I otherwise wouldn't have. They told us stories of their world, of where they came from, America, Canada, right? They told us about their experiences in Nepal. Of course, they would make us laugh. Because for us, they were being stupid. But for them, they were having an amazing experience. Like David Beeston, he took a bicycle ride from Thankot. Do you all know where Thankot is? Kathmandu? Okay. Down Thankot to Nobise. On a bicycle. That's silly. But he did that twice. And he got into an accident. And of course, when he told us this story, we were all laughing. Right? But he also told us stories about his country, his city, his state that he came from. And he would tell us about winters, for example. And describing winters in his city, in his little place. He would say, when you look out the window in Winnipeg, in the winter, in the dead of the winter, when you look out, all you see is white. Everything is white, right? I never forgot this, for example. Right? While I was drawing inspiration from these teachers, from the books that I was reading, while I was dreaming of going to the US to study, of course, there was a lot of pressure for me to quit school, from my family, from my community, and so on. But I stayed on. I kept going. I didn't quit because I was determined to realize my dream. And then, at some point, in secondary school, I heard about what's called the United World Colleges. And I'll tell you more about the scholarships later on. Okay? I heard about the United World Colleges and how the United World Colleges offer scholarships to Nepali students. And I applied for those scholarships. Okay? Because again, my teachers, the books that I read had inspired me to learn about, think about, wonder about the world out there, the people outside, right? And I realized going to United World College would enable me to also do that. I applied and then got a scholarship to attend the United World College of the Adriatic in Italy. How many of you know where Italy is? Raise your hand. How many of you know where Italy is? No one? Come on, you must know where Italy is. How many of you know what continent it is in? Okay, it's in Europe, yes. Right. I ended up there, and I studied there for 2 years. I did what would be called, what is equivalent to 10 plus 2 here, okay? So I did my 10 plus 2 here, and here I had some of the most amazing, insightful experiences of my life. I was one of 200 students from all over the world. We represented at the time, about 65 different countries. How many countries are there in the world? How many countries are there in the world? How many? Does anyone know? Okay, you can shout out. How many? Take a guess.
More than 200.
More than 200, yes. Much more than 200. Any guesses? Nope, much more than that. About 265. Okay? But in those days, when I was a student here, there were fewer countries. But imagine 200 people in a school representing 65 different countries. Okay? We learned from each other, about each other, about our cultures, about our religion, about our countries, about our food, about our music. In addition to learning in the classroom very differently from how I had been used to learning in Nepal. Outside, you are required to think for yourself. You're expected to have an opinion. You're expected to be able to express your feelings. Okay? A lot of the stuff that I learned there from my friends and the school, of course, I did not know before I had left Nepal. A lot of those things were completely new discoveries for me. And one of the most important realizations that I made during my 2 years there was this. If you have never experienced a different culture, if you have never experienced a different people, it's a little difficult to make that realization. Not impossible, but a little difficult. You certainly realize that when you live with people who don't speak your language, who don't like the food you like, who don't listen to the music that you listen to, who don't sing the songs and dance the way that you do. You come to realize that. Because really, in the end, they might do all of the things differently. In the end, however, there are things about them, you realize them and you, that is the same. That we are humans, that we have similar desires, wants, needs. Okay? And those experiences, those 2 years, also got me interested more in other people, other cultures, other countries, other religions, right? I was intrigued. As much as I learned, I was still intrigued by what might be out there. Who else might be out there? Okay? But, of course, as much as I developed those new interests, my main interest had been to go to the United States for further studies. So I applied when I was at the UWC. I applied to go to the US during my second year, and spring of 1990, I was offered again a full scholarship to Grinnell College in Iowa. Again, I was there for 3.5 years. Half the year, I was supposed to be there 4 years, but half of the year I ended up going to the UK because that opportunity was there. So during my time here in the US, again, I learned about other people, other cultures, other countries, right? As much as I did about the Americans, about the United States. Okay? And by that time, of course, towards 1994, when I had finished, when I was about to be done, I had met and become friends with people from all over the world, right? How many friends do you have from another country? How many of you have friends from another country? Raise your hand. How many would like to make friends from other countries? Raise your hand. So none of you are interested in making friends from other countries? No? Okay, the fact that you're talking amongst yourselves tells me either that's a ridiculous question or you're kind of not even listening. How many of you would like to have friends from other countries? How many of you have thought about it? Okay. Is this because you're embarrassed to admit? Surely some of you have thought, you must have watched movies on YouTube, or you must have wondered what it might be like to be a friend, have a friend from some other country. No? Well, you know you can. I think I have friends from, I don't know, maybe 130 countries. I don't even know how many. Okay? But that's because of these experiences. So, when I was about done, instead of thinking about coming back to Nepal, I realized I needed to actually see more of the world. I realized I needed to see the places, the cultures that my friends had told me about. Right? And as a matter of fact, towards the end of my stay at Grinnell, one afternoon, spring 1994, my friend Aubrey, she's an American, she and I were having ice cream. Right? We were having ice cream, and one of the questions she asked was, so, what do you want to do? Like I asked you guys, but this was when I was at college. So what do you want to do? She asked. And I said, I want to go explore the world. But I had no idea how I was going to do that. I had no plans. Right? But that was something I had wanted to do for a long time. Right? That desire had gotten stronger and stronger with time as I spent more and more time abroad. And guess what? That's what happened. That summer, I was offered a job to work in Italy as a teacher. And that first foray into teaching in Italy is what got me into teaching for over 15 years. Right? I taught in a country as far west as the United States, far east as Hong Kong, as far north as Norway, and as far south as Malawi. Right? And all these other countries in between. And of course, while I was teaching in those countries, I traveled. Because as a teacher, you get a lot of time off. Right? You get fall break, winter break, spring break, and then summer break. And I traveled. I traveled in lots of countries, about 40 different countries. And if I didn't have a Nepali passport, if I had an American passport or some other passport, I would have probably traveled to 100 countries by now. But because my Nepali passport made it difficult, I only managed 40 countries. Right? I lived in 14 cities around the world in that time. 9 countries, 14 cities, and I think I had something like 27 residential addresses. So I moved a lot. And the only thing I owned, the only thing I moved with was my clothes and my books. That was it. I had no house. I had no furniture. I had no car that I moved with. I had a car in one country, but maybe not in another country. Okay? That was the kind of life I had. And I went on wildlife safaris in Africa. Went and saw the hippos, elephants. Did you know that hippos kill the most people in Africa? You did? Good, okay. I went hot air ballooning in Australia. I went skiing in Georgia. How many of you know where Georgia is? Georgia is a little country. It used to be part of Soviet Union. But you probably don't even know what Soviet Union is. It used to be a country. It used to be a huge country. Russia was part of Soviet Union, yes. Georgia, Russia, Ukraine, Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, all of those countries used to be part of Soviet Union. And apart from that, I went scuba diving. How many of you know what scuba diving is? Hands up. What's scuba diving? Scuba diving. You do that in the sea. Does anyone know? You put on all these gears and you put on this big tank of air with a little thing in your mouth. You go into the sea, you dive into the sea and go deep, and you breathe through that little thing. How many of you have seen that? Surely you've seen it on TV. Yeah, okay. So I've scuba dived, right? I've gone hot air ballooning there in the Philippines, scuba dived. Zanzibar, I went scuba diving. And in Zanzibar, I went on what's called a dolphin safari. I went swimming with the wild dolphins. Crazy, huh? And I also learned all kinds of dances, like salsa, merengue. How many of you know what salsa means? Salsa, what's salsa? You don't know? Salsa is food as well as a dance. Merengue is another dance, right? And I learned to play what's called the didgeridoo. Does anyone know what a didgeridoo is? No? It's a long tube. made of wood, and you blow on it, and it makes this amazing sound, hypnotic sound. Okay. And I learned to play what's called ultimate frisbee, and that's my favorite sport, as a matter of fact. Ultimate frisbee is this little disc made of plastic that you throw around, and it flies, right? There's a sport associated with that. It's called ultimate frisbee. I learned to play that, and it's my favorite sport, as a matter of fact, like I mentioned. Okay? Of course, all the while, all that time that I'm traveling around, I'm working around in different countries, I'm still dreaming of returning to Nepal. And I finally make up my mind to come back to Nepal in March 2013. At the time, I was teaching in Qatar. So, one of the reasons I'm talking to you in front of you right now, telling you my story, one of the reasons is this. Okay? So anyway, March 2013, I decided I was coming home, and my contract would have ended in June 2013, and I would have been back end of June. But that was not to be so. I would take a little detour. On May 1st, that year, in 2013, I was thrown in jail for allegedly insulting Islam. All right? But my friends around the world, all of these friends that I met, friends that I studied with, friends in Italy, friends that I studied with in Italy, friends that I worked with all around the world, students, right? People who had been my students when I was teaching, people who had taught me when I was in Italy, when I was in the US, friends in Nepal, friends who had been my classmates in Nepal, friends who had gone to school with me in Nepal, in Kathmandu. They started a massive campaign, right? And within 4 days of the campaign, I was released. I was in jail for 12 days, but the campaign started on the 8th, and I was released on the 12th. Because of the work that my friends from all around the world did for me on my behalf. When I was released, I was finally back home, finally in Nepal after all those years to try to fulfill my other dream. What was the other dream? Desko sewa garne, right? Yeah. So I came back and I started working with a friend of mine who I had known since second grade at St. Xavier's. He also went to the US for studies, and he came back to run his non-profit organization, NGO. I started working with him, and where we've been working for quite a while, is a little village in Sindhupalchok. I share this video to give you an idea of the kind of students who go to the schools we work at. Okay.
I want to be a policeman.
I want to be an engineer.
I want to be a doctor.
I want to be a nurse.
I want to be a teacher.
I want to be a doctor.
We're here in Sindhupalchok at the school that you're supporting. You've just heard the dreams and aspirations of the students. But there's a huge gap between their dreams and reality. The reality is that the school doesn't have enough classrooms. For instance, this particular classroom, they have had to put 2 different classes together. And right now, there are over 50 students in here. The other issue, the other challenge here is the quality of teaching. Although the teachers themselves are highly committed, they lack experience and they lack training to help the students realize their dreams. I'm incredibly grateful for the support that you provided me thus far. I need one final push to get us past the tipping point, to help the children of Sindapalchok achieve their dreams. So, in working with these students, with these schools, of course, I am trying to fulfill my dream of helping the next generation of Nepalese students, Nepalese children who came from similar background as me, who come from the kind of background that I came from, to realize their dream, basically, their academic dreams. Okay? The idea, the hope is that they'll get the kind of opportunities that I've had. And in coming here to speak to you, I'm also trying to do that, to try to help, to try to inspire you to dream big. Dream things, of places, of opportunities, of life that your parents don't, haven't, didn't for themselves, and possibly even not for you. My hope is that through these efforts of mine, that more and more students around the country will be inspired, will have the kind of experiences that I've had. Okay? And that education, and hope that education becomes to them what it has been for me. Okay? My hope is that they'll get the education that they'll need in order to be able to exercise their freedom. Their freedom to dream and chart their destiny, just as I have been able to do. And in coming to speak to you now, my hope is that since I'm from this area, and since I have been able to accomplish my dreams, I'm hoping that you will be able to as well, that you should be able to also work towards your dream, whatever it may be. Okay? I'm here to tell you to try to reach for that which you've been told you shouldn't, that which you've been told you can't, right? That which you've been told that you're not capable of by our Nepali society, by the people around you, in this village and beyond. But strive for it, dream big, and you'll realize it. Okay? That's it. That's my presentation. Now, to that end, okay, I'm involved in the selection of students for UWC scholarships. Right? We get anywhere from half a dozen to a dozen or 14, 15 offers. Okay? Some of those offers are full scholarships, just like the one that I got, which took me to Italy. And after you're done with SLC next year, you would qualify to apply for these scholarships. Okay? The information about these scholarships, I publish a blog, right? And when we publish the application forms, I publish a blog with details of where the application form can be found, where it can be downloaded, and so on. This was for the scholarships for this year. We're done with the selection. Okay? 3 are going on full scholarship. 3 young girls are going all over the world to study as full scholarship students. One, she's from Sindhapalchok. Her house, everything, she and her family lost everything to the earthquake. Another is a young girl, young lady, who used to be a carpet factory worker. But she was rescued and she started school when she was 11 years old and finished SEE by the time she was 17. All right? So she completed 10 years, what would have taken 10 years of schooling, in something like 6 years. Okay? And the third one, I can't remember the details. Anyway, the point is, this is an incredible opportunity for children like you at your stage of your academic career. All right? If you're interested, you can find out about them through my blog.